What an amazing day to see how far we've come in 10 years. One of the things I think some of you will know I like to do is have a think about how things might look in the future. And so I stumbled across this Time magazine from July 2031. And it's a special issue, and it's called The Country of the Century. So I'm just going to read you a little excerpt from the cover story. Features Andy in it quite heavily. Talking about the beginning of the movement, its father, Andy Hamilton, said, "This was not just about being a richer nation. At the time, there was all this talk about catching up to Australia. It was uninspiring and insipid. Hey, money is good and I'm glad I have some," he said. "And we need it for our healthcare, to educate our kids, to keep our streets safe." So yes, wealth creation is how this conversation began. However, there was a small group of us who also knew that society was on the cusp of a new definition of what success actually meant. That the idea that profit is the only motive, above all, was being questioned. So we also banked on that view and ended up creating a movement about purpose. To create a country of purpose. Since those early days of the 3000 Project, New Zealand has gone on to carve a position in the world that is the envy of all countries. It is the ultimate model in creating value, wealth, and happiness through a vision where commercial, social, and environmental endeavors are unified. It is purpose-driven from the core to make the world a better place, and as such, it has played a key role in redefining what capitalism is. The Nobel Prize winner Michael Porter, the luminary Harvard University professor who spent half a career espousing pure capitalism, is now 84 and remembers his paper from January 2011, when he first flagged the concept that capitalism was in for change. He has a home in Auckland and says, "New Zealand nailed socially responsible growth, and they did it first. And because of it, New Zealand has become home to the brightest thinkers and minds of our generation from all around the world. It's what the world needed. It was New Zealand's time, and now everyone wishes to follow. It has achieved a vision around being a small but perfectly formed country of the 21st century. Powerful, inspirational, responsible, and a beacon of the future." Project 3000 resulted in about 2,400 global ventures identified over the first decade, about 600 shy of the goal. But what it lacked in numbers, it eventually made up for in size. In 2013, an ambitious concept of New Zealand sponsoring the future grand challenges facing this world was launched. In partnership with the X Prize Foundation, the government, and leading New Zealand companies, 28 prizes to global innovators creating major breakthroughs have been awarded over $1 billion in prize money. A small portion of the prize dollars were cash, but the vast majority of it came with strings attached that incented them to tie the future of their innovations to New Zealand. A new industry in renewable and green energy formed, spawning dozens of ventures and the migration of thousands of bright minds to these shores, to an area now known as the Green Zone just outside of central Auckland. New Zealand was the first nation to go carbon neutral with an electric vehicle fleet. LanzaTech became the Kiwis' first green tech blockbuster and our first billion-dollar startup. Listing on NASDAQ in 2014, LanzaTech has a market value of over $45 billion today. 6 other Kiwi green stories followed suit, and dozens of technology ventures. From his Queenstown home, legendary investor and visionary Peter Thiel told us, "I could see that New Zealand and the model they were pursuing was going to represent the future. I knew I could start helping create wealth and helping create innovative companies, building an ecosystem in sectors that New Zealand could lead. So we backed a few small ideas, we backed a few big ideas, and we were right about the Kiwis. Mark Zuckerberg, founder of the first trillion-dollar company, Facebook, is now also a proud Kiwi. When Peter first introduced me to Andy and New Zealand in 2015, I believed in what they were doing. A little naive at first, a little shaky, but after a while, a real movement formed and the vision was becoming clearer and clearer. They wanted to create wealth, not only through innovation and for the sake of it, but to make the country and the world a better place as an integral part of it. It was a radical idea back then, but it's so obvious now. I think they've done a pretty good job of it, and I call it the best little country in the world. There's a lot more in the article, but those are some of the high points. With everything you've witnessed today since 8 a.m., I'm over time, but I've got this and you don't. What we are ultimately talking about here is creating a country that matters on the global stage. Creating a country that will make a ding in the universe. At the end of this day, the bar is very close, but you have to decide, what does all this mean? And what are you going to do about it? Too often we come to events like these and we listen and we hear stories, we get inspired momentarily, and we go home and do nothing. But today's different. That's not going to happen here, and that's not going to happen today. Because what you are witnessing is the precursor of a movement, the beginning of a revolution. And because you're here, you now have a responsibility to take ownership and accountability for this movement. So my big idea isn't really a big idea. It's very simple. As you leave today, after the bar, I have a great idea that I'm going to share with you. It's called, you have the choice to do anything you like as long as it's one of these three things. First one, choose to enable the revolution. If you are part of a company or an organization or a university, latch on to one of the things that someone's talked about today, something that's inspired you, and do something to move that forward. It's option number one. Option number two, join the revolution. You saw about a dozen inspiring companies today, if not more. Choose to leave the world you're in and become a part of the fabric of the nation's future and join a startup or join a venture and help them achieve their dreams. The third option, the biggest sacrifice, but the highest reward, is lead the revolution. Be one of those 3,000. Create your own dream and create your own thread to weave into that fabric. We're all here to help. That's what the Icehouse is about. Andy's here to help. The Icehouse is here to help. I'm here to help because we need to do this together. And it's going to take all of us, as Saray says, all of us is stronger than any one of us. So pick one. That's my idea. And before we end, Andy, thank you for a great day. You're an amazing guy, and I think we have a huge decade ahead of us.
Thanks, mate.